All right. Hey, everybody. So I had left our hero, getting back on the road after kind of a gut punch of a day. When I look back on that, that was certainly the change. I had started off and I had Ohio, Lower Michigan, and Upper Michigan. 3 honeymoon kinds of days for this epic journey. And then I had the day, which was mostly Minnesota up to Bemidji. And, well, yeah, things had taken a turn. And honestly, the next day, I'm sort of glad the next day happened, even though it was also another kind of gut punch. So the next day, Minnesota begins to, well, I had been traveling through forest. I mean, a lot of forest. The Upper Peninsula is really sort of all forest, and then largely Minnesota is a lot of forest. But then after Bemidji, it really begins to kind of open out. And the challenge, the major challenge of the next day was the wind. Oh, man. I think that it really sort of never got below about 20 miles per hour. It was relentless, just relentless. And so I'm doing 55 thereabouts. I don't think that the bike really went a giant amount more than about 55. And Highway 2 just opens up until you're out in the Great Plains. It's there's nothing out there. So, you know, I'm once again a kind of juggernaut, this time against the wind. And about a dozen miles east of Minot, North Dakota, why not Minot, had the second real adventure. My back tire this time decided to blow out. And I'm extraordinarily glad that it was not my front. But all of a sudden, my back tire was just flop, 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 flop. And it was scary, but it was not as frightening as the lockup. And I basically just came off the throttle and pulled over. I've told you I've told you how close to the financial bone this trip was. And here I am looking at a flat tire thinking, oh crud. I don't know if I can financially do a new tire. So I took the wheel off and just left the motorcycle there on the side of the highway, and began to hitchhike in. I had seen signs saying that Minot was a dozen miles up, and somebody came along and picked me up in a pickup truck. And he was really nice, and he took me to I think it was a Honda shop, but it actually it actually might have been something else. I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter. It was a motorcycle shop for sure. So I'm in this motorcycle shop, and I'm asking the guys, I need your cheapest, like really your cheapest solution to my problem. And he took a look at it, and he says, "Boss, I don't see you going up to Alaska on this tire. We're going to have to get you a new tire." So I was like, "Okay, how much is the tire going to cost me?" He says, "We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do. You don't worry. You don't worry." And I was, okay, all right. So about an hour and a half later, guy comes out and he says, you're all done, my friend. You're all done." And I was like, "Okay, how much?" He says, "You know what? We found you a used tire that's going to work just fine, and we're not even going to charge you nothing at all." So, okay. So I got a ride back to my to my bike, and I put it on and headed out. So that is my day after that is my Minot, North Dakota story. Why not Minot? People treated me really nice there, but it was also one hell of a day in terms of the wind. So the next day got me into what I'll call the Badlands of Montana. And I camped at I camped at in an area that was off the road. Let me just put it that way. Definitely not a campground, but off the road there in the Badlands. And the next day on got me to it got me to within viewing distance of the Rocky Mountains. And I remember going through this little town. It seems to me that the little town was called Chester, but my memory is not great. A little one-horse town. And I stayed at a real campground. And the guy who ran the place says, "Don't even worry about it. Just pitch your tent over there. Won't charge you anything. In the morning, you can take a shower." And I was so thankful. Oh, man, I was so thankful. And I could see the mountains up ahead. And seeing the mountains up ahead changed the lens that the trip had developed. I had been gut punched in Minnesota, and then I had undergone kind of this wind craziness, and now I had finished 2 days worth of driving through the Badlands, essentially. And the lens of the trip had, the honeymoon was surely over, and now I had, I don't know how to put it, but I had truly undergone a change. My head was like, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" And seeing the mountains up ahead was really something to me. I thought, wow, I'm making it to something. The next day dawned absolutely spectacularly beautiful. And I remember riding up into the Rocky Mountains, riding up into, in fact, Glacier National Park on Highway 2. And you begin going up these giant sweepers. and the sky was just the most crystalline blue, and the mountains were just so gorgeous. And my head was like, wow, okay. In a sense, I've kind of made it, even though I'm nowhere near there. I have, in a sense, kind of made it. And my thinking was that I would go into Glacier National Park and then ride up, I think they call it the Highway into the Sun or something like that. And that highway goes into Canada, okay? And then you can make your way up onto the Alcan and so on and so forth, right? On one of those sweepers, a guy on a Honda Custom 900. There used to be a motorcycle called the Custom 900, and it was a beauty. It was a beauty. He passes me up, and he just looks fantastic on this motorcycle, and he looks over at me, and he's just like, "Oh my God!" So we kind of ride together, even though I'm probably going 15 miles per hour less than he probably could or wants to. And I remember in a little turnout kind of a thing, maybe a rest area or something, we began to talk, and I told him what the hell I was doing. He's okay, where you headed, man? And I says, I'm going into Alaska. I'm headed up to the highway into the sun, and I'm headed up into Canada. And he took one look at me, and he was very kind, and he said, "No, you ain't." He says, they're not going to let you. They're not going to let you in. not looking like that. They're not going to let you in, my friend. And so I don't know what I was. I was something else. I was reveling in the beauty of the road and Montana and the mountains. And I was also thinking, what in the hell am I gonna do now? And as the evening began to come on, and we said goodbye, I had a kind of emotional holy shit moment. And I remember stopping in there in Montana in a town. I'm not 100% sure of what the name of the town was. It may have been Shelby. I'm not positive what the name of it was. I do know that it was right past the Glacier National Park. But I'm still full in the mountains. And I went to a bar, and from a payphone in the bar, I called my dad. And the conversation I had with my dad, it really affects me still. It affects me still. I was laying it out, man. I was like, what the hell am I gonna do? What the hell am I gonna do now? This guy that I met, he convinced me that this is not gonna work. And I don't know what to do. He's absolutely right, by the way. I probably don't have the money. I mean, I'm eating peaches here, and putting everything I've got in the gas tank, and I just don't know whether I'm going to make it. Not only that, but the bike had begun to run about 5, 6, 7 miles per hour slower than its top speed had reduced. And so I was beginning to get frightened about the ability of the bike to make it. And my dad said, keep going. Keep going to Seattle. I think what we can do is get a hold of your uncle. My Uncle Doug. He was there for me. My Uncle Doug might be able to wire you some money if you can make it to Seattle, and what you can do is put your motorcycle on a boat, and then you can go on this boat all the way until you get to Haines, Alaska, and then you can pop back into Canada and then carry on to Anchorage. And so now I had a different purpose, a different way of looking at things. And my heart eased up, and I thought, okay, I can do this. I can do this once again. And for that, I owe my dad, man, I owe him. Wow. So I left the bar, and it was now evening, full-on evening. And I had always attempted to find some place to sleep before evening. And here I was, essentially right outside of Glacier National Park, and I was not going to be able to afford campgrounds. And so I was really worried about where in the hell I was going to be able to sleep. I mean, we're talking about, I don't know, there's just nothing. There's just nothing out there. Where in the hell am I going to be able to sleep? And so I was riding down the road, and I came across a trinket shop, is the best way to put it. I remember that the shop was made out of logs, whole logs, and it was kind of off the road just a little bit. Definitely a tourist trap kind of a place, And I pull off, and I walk in thinking that I was going to ask the proprietor if he knew of a place where I could, stealth camp. I guess it's a term that I read now, And it turns out that the proprietor was this guy who looked like he was about 75, maybe 80. And he takes a look at me, and he's like, "No, man, there's no place like that. No. I'll tell you what, though. I'll tell you what. You can camp on my front lawn, all right?" So I go out to the car, and I pull everything off, and it turns out that right behind the little tourist shop is a large lawn, and beyond the lawn is a double-wide trailer. And so I pitched my tent on the lawn out front, and no sooner had I pitched the tent that the guy pokes his head out of the double wide and says, "Come on over for some dinner." So I go into his home, and I meet his wife, and I have a beautiful dinner there, just outside of Glacier Park, Montana. And turns out that he's quite the character. He writes his own poetry, and he gave me a book of his poems. And we talked about dreams, and we talked about how he'd built his place, and I felt once again that what I had started was a grand adventure, and doable, and still doable. My dad had lit a spark under me, had come up with a different plan, and this man had made it okay. Had made it okay. So that was what I will call part 2. Part 3 will be the remainder of the trip to Seattle. And then maybe I'll put on a part 4 as well. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.